Okay, so we've got another one of our traditional styles low water patterns I wanted to tie for you, similar to the last video. Again, this one comes to us from originated by Ken McLeod off the Kispiox River. Size 6 Umpqua 203 in the vise again. Like I was saying before, great value hook for the money. Comes in a pack of 50. Vivas 6/0 thread. Great stuff. So this one is interesting. So specifically the old pattern calls for the marabou-like fluff off the end of a saddle hackle. So you'll see here I've got a saddle, or what's left of a saddle hackle, and this is what I used to tie the last fly we just did, which was called the Kispiox Sunrise. This time, oh, by the way, this is called a McLeod's Ugly, which I think is just an awesome name for a fly. And so it calls for this for a tail. So you can see it's very similar in its movement to marabou. So we're just going to take a little tail of this stuff. Not too much. Again, tail length, you're looking about body length of the fly. And again, this is another chenille-bodied fly, so I'm not going to worry too much about the messy way I'm tying this in. You know, sometimes when you want to tie flies quickly, I don't worry too much about that. This one doesn't have a rib, but it does have a palmered hackle. So grizzly hackle is what's called for in this. I'm going to pick something that's fairly wide and kind of webby-ish towards the base. It looks pretty good. And whenever I do these, I've got so I've got that nice saddle patch. I like to try and keep the tips if I can for doing other flies. Like if I want to put them on as a tip on a intruder, something like that. So I'll cut it off there to start, and then just cut off the fibers off either side of that hackle tip, just to reveal the tip like that. So we're still tying it in by the tip more or less. Tie it in well. And then we've got our chenille. So again, in case you didn't watch the last video, when you're tying in your chenille, if you haven't worked with chenille before, I personally like to just take my finger, thumb, just pull it a little bit and expose the core. Reason to do that, it doesn't tie in with quite so much bulk when you go to otherwise if you just tie in this much chenille right at the back, you end up with kind of a lump. Bring your thread forward, leave enough room for a turn or two of hackle at the tip, and also for our wing. So bring this black chenille forward. Kind of interesting to be working with chenille. Haven't done so in so long. One thing about this Vivas thread, it's awesome, good strong stuff, but one thing I don't really like about it, well, the only thing I don't like about it, is the bobbins themselves are very slick. And you need to have a lot of tension on your bobbin to kind of hold them. It's actually, I usually use one of these, if you haven't used them before. I think they're called Wright bobbins. Really nice. You can basically crank in the amount of tension you want and it stays put. Don't have to hardly palm the spool at all. Works great. Okay, so our hackle. we are just going to now palmer that forward, and you'll get to see why this is called the ugly, I guess. In many ways it's a lot like a woolly bugger or woolly worm, but this particular one is called McLeod's ugly. Give it a couple extra wraps right at the head, catch it in, 90-degree turn into the stem so that the stem is underneath. Fold it back if you really want to. Trim it off. Again, you can just pull back all of this mess you've made. Cover it up. Nice. Okay, now normally the wing on this is supposed to be black bear. I don't have any black bear, so which is kind of a funny thing living in the north. I'll talk to a friend, I guess. So instead I'm going to use a bucktail, black bucktail. Try and pick some nice straight stuff. It's a little bit softer, so it has some movement to it. That's the big advantage of the bear. Obviously the bear is quite a bit softer than the bucktail. If you pull some bucktail from higher up, though, it'll be a little softer, have some more movement to it. So again, give it a bit of a twist to open up the base. Pull out all your under fur. And bucktail's pretty hard to get even on the end. You can't really stack it or anything. But again, you're looking about end of the hook for length. Pre-cut it. And it's always a good idea when you're tying in something like this. Wax your thread. Tire's best friend, wax, when it comes to putting in old style wings like this. A lot of people have forgotten how to tie, well, not forgotten, they never learned how to tie like this because they've always done marabou popsicles and intruders, things like that. So, same with this as we did with our polar bear. I like to put on a few wraps, put a little tiny bit of light cement, get it to penetrate in between those thread wraps, and then we're going to really crank down on this, finish up our fly nice, a nice bright red head. And whip finish. So this is a pretty quick fly to tie too. Again, low water pattern, old style, but it used to catch big huge fish. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be able to still catch big huge fish, especially in these low water conditions. There's no sense using big flies, going to spook the fish. Yeah, so this one was called, again, Ken and George McLeod, father and son, did a lot of fishing in the Kispiox in the 50s, 60s, and this is called the McLeod's Ugly. There you go, hope you enjoy it.